We just don't have all the data that we need to make a lot of these decisions. We don't have a great evidence base on how we're spending in many detailed ways, both at headquarters and at the platform, and what are the costs, what are the processes that we are undertaking, and the activities that they're sitting on top of.
Can I stop you?
Yeah, sure.
So when you think this is when you saw, perceive this to be a gap in information, can you give me a little bit of texture? What are the costs or processes that we think we don't know enough about at one or the other level?
I think one is looking at sort of headquarters type costs at the platform. What are the things that they're doing in their sort of overhead pool, even though it's not costed that way, that could be reduced, that are duplicative of things we're either doing here in DC or could be done more efficiently on a platform-to-platform basis. That might be one. Carol, you've talked a lot about that analysis of cost.
Example?
No, we're really looking at how we capture our costs in our proposals to budget, to donors in the donor budgets. And in some cases, we're duplicating at the platform functions that are happening at HQ. We haven't defined well what specific activities cost, what those costs are, and what's reasonable across platforms. So we're expensive in some places and less expensive in others. We also have definitional questions around how we define certain costs. We ran across it this morning where we found one part of the organization is calling Fringe one thing and another part thinks it's something else. Okay. So we don't really know what that cost is because we're talking about different things.
And another example might be, we were talking about looking at ourselves more horizontally. So what does it cost to have finance done across the world? And what does it cost to have human resources done? And we don't have the data right now, and the way we collect our data isn't exactly perfect for doing the analysis.
I mean, what does it cost for the way we currently do business?
The way we currently do business.
And are there ways to do it cheaper? So, you know, it's looking at the structure of platforms as it currently exists, with every platform having an identical set of line departments, and every platform having its own CR. And are there ways in which that can be consolidated? Are there ways in which we could produce as much value, if not more, cheaper? It's kind of the same lens we also often look back at headquarters. Do you need 27 departments? Are there ways in which you can reorganize it? What are the, you know, and then that gets into, well, what are the job descriptions? What are some of the key workflow processes? How can this be rethought in a way which would make it more efficient and higher value at a reduced cost?
Okay.
So yeah, so just to sum up, I think there's a recognition that we don't have all the data that we would want in order to make those decisions. The next critical element being then, once we have that data and start to make decisions around it, how do we prioritize? What are the must-haves versus the nice-to-haves? How can we be sure that there's still links to, that there's still a good link between control and quality in terms of the platforms and being part of the network and making sure that that is still solid. How do we reduce duplication when it's necessary? And finally then, making sure that we can identify success in terms of this value for money concept, which I think a lot of us are seeing it seeing it being explained and articulated by DFID, but realizing how well it fits in terms of thinking about economy and just cutting costs, efficiency, and being more cost effective ultimately in terms of our impact. And so looking around BFM metrics, but also other indicators as well, I think that there's potential for identifying success in those ways.
Sorry to ask one more question. So the must-have versus nice-to-have, which I saw yesterday, and I'm sure has been a thread that runs through all the conversation. At any point did you, even among this group, try to be concrete about that? Or was it just the general concept that somebody should be deciding what's nice to have and what's got to have?
You mean, did we pick winners and losers? No.
Nobody was tempted to do that?
Every time we tried to, they said that's not what we're doing today.
Underlying that is the presumption that, of course, we would all have different winners and losers.
Yes.
But we did talk about it in terms of what we have to have to function as an organization. What is governance, what are their essentials, and then what are those for the platforms?
It wasn't a group, but our individual.
Yeah.
I think
Very fundamental things, compliance, protecting the brand, certain financial.
But even within all of those, there are must-haves.
Yeah.
We did not go down that road.
And I think there was a sense that as the remainder of the strategic planning process unfolds, we'll have a better idea of what those sidelining all of this, we recognize there's a huge need for communicating this throughout the organization and being upfront about it, being clear, and making sure that people understand the process from start to finish and that they're brought in along the way, they understand the sense of urgency, et cetera. And also we thought there's a benefit to viewing this whole thing through a marketing lens at a minimum, and that has certain value to that as well. Sorry, thank you. Okay. Cost and process. We're thinking around $250,000 plus staff time, plus the opportunity cost of all the staff focusing on this through some sort of an outside objective party coming in to help us look at these processes, look at these costs, and then help us work through the recommendations.
Example of who that might be? Somebody have an idea? Somebody used somebody?
Accenture.
Gordon Ramsay.
Accenture does
Some of
it,
us are architect
Deloitte
firms.
does it, I mean, I've
Okay.
seen
Yeah,
many
you saw this
organizations.
yesterday. Gordon Ramsay just
Because
wreaking havoc in the
they
kitchen.
have processes and they'll force us through them.
Who are the people?
I think, I've seen Deloitte and Accenture, others do it.
But again, based on the concept that you presented, if we were to bring in somebody outside, they're looking at headquarters, they're looking at platforms, they're looking at the whole.
Whatever we tell them, however big we wanna make it,
The entire business model.
or we can
For
do,
$250K?
or we can do smaller, because there's something in here
With donated.
called establish a culture of continuous improvement. So if we find we don't wanna tackle everything all at once, we can say, let's tackle these 3 areas. And let's look at those in detail and make them better, cheaper, more functional.
Okay.
And then move on. And more of it could be done internally, but I think we can decide how much to start off spending and how big the process is gonna be.
Right. And do we think, I mean, you know, there's sort of, sorry to keep interrupting, but
You're supposed to ask questions.
Yeah.
there are kind of 2 reasons why one might go to Gordon Ramsay. One is because Gordon really knows his shit, and he, you know, is a total professional at understanding how to sort of restructure and
Re-engineer.
more value, re-engineer. And the other is because we just don't think we can do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And did anybody, I mean, was there a consensus around which of those is the reasons why this is
Both.
important?
I think
We came
everybody
up with
said
that.
both. And I think, but to your second point, I think that there was a general sense that we will have a hard time making these decisions.
That we're not objective enough. That we
And
need
that
someone.
we need some outside help to do that.
So, but if somebody from the outside came in and said, we really don't need, you know, X, Y, or Z department, that we would then salute and say, if we don't have the political will to do it ourselves, we would have the political will to implement what somebody else told us to do.
Well, I think we'd have to have that, Will, but I think you'd also, I think you would also feel sort of validated by having an outside person come in and give you the benefit of their experience and their telling you how other organizations have done it, so that it makes it somewhat less hard of a decision to make.
And part of it is not necessarily that we don't have the will up front, is that we don't know what those decisions
Right.
are yet, and this process would help us.
There's a little bit of experience curve in here, Carl. I mean, bringing in an objective experience. Now, there's a risk because you get the wrong consultant and you pissed your money away.
Sure.
But if you pick the right consultant or group, then they can add significant value.
Like what BCG has done for SAGE, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
But do they tell you, you know, what the must-haves and need-to-haves are? Or they walk you through a process by which you, I would assume it's the
You would
latter,
Yeah, you do it.
right?
They walk
And
you through
so
the
hopefully the
process.
political will and the buy-in is built into that process. I mean, they're just coming in. One thing Carl should know is that we did work in 3 separate groups, so it's the first
You're
time some of us are
reacting to
hearing the
this, yeah.
polished version. We've seen the rougher versions, first time we've seen the polished version.
I think, Brian, that's why we separated out the analysis phase and the prioritisation phase, was the analysis phase would be driven primarily by the outside party with their experience and costs, etc., and looking at organisations. Prioritisation phase was more of a sort of a dialogue based on the results of the analysis.
Okay.
Carl, we would fund this not with new money, with existing money. In other words, there would be offsetting cuts starting with the budget we put together a week after Thanksgiving to pay for it.
And you could also look at getting somebody to donate some of their time if you have
Right.
to.
So, but this is not a request for new money.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
So in sum, I think that's about it.